to Vegas All Net Radio, the final frontier of free speech.
Las Vegas, famous, fabulous playground of the West.
Listen in to the Vegas Knights Tales with Benny Baccarat, Danny Craps, and Jimmy Bags. Every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on VegasAllNetRadio.com. Old school Vegas, past and present. Not listening to Vegas Knights Tales might get you clipped, and I don't mean by a barber either.
Vegas Knights Tales, every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Only here on Vegas All Net Radio.
Las Vegas, famous, fabulous playground of the West. A wide-open town that never goes to sleep.
I don't care if the sun don't shine. I do my drinking in the evening time when I'm in Las Vegas.
Get ready for 1 full hour of vintage Vegas. This is Vegas Knights Tales, the radio show. These three dealers have spent their time in the gaming pits, and now they're talking. Growing up in 1950s Vegas, breaking into the mob-run casinos in the 1970s, they'll tell what it was really like in the golden era. The art of dice and cards, mobsters and muscles, starlets and harlots. The real story from guys who lived it. Now, let's bring on the hosts. Here's Benny Baccarat, Danny Craps, and Jimmy Bags.
Well, good morning, everybody. I should say afternoon. Used to be morning, used to be on KLAV. We have now moved over to Vegas All Net Radio. We are the Vegas Knights Tales. My name, Benny Baccarat, here with Danny Craps, Jimmy Bags, also known as the Cincinnati Kid.
How are you?
Yeah.
How you folks doing today?
Yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit about ourselves to start off with, on who's who here, and then we're going to get into a little bit about one of the very first casinos ever to be built out here in Nevada.
I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Yeah, it is exciting. It is. Hey, Jimmy, how about telling a little bit about yourself to start off with?
Okay, I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm going to tell you the year. And what brought us to Vegas, or what connected us to Vegas, is my father used to deal across the river in them bust-out joints in Newport, Kentucky. Anybody from Newport, Covington, or anywhere in the Cincinnati area, you feel me. You know what I'm talking about. And in the around 58, 59, they got an honest mayor in there who decided to close the joints down. So we all made escape to Las Vegas. My dad came out in 58, opened to Stardust, put in the first Chuck-a-Luck game. I was 12 years old when I first came to Vegas. I loved it from the first moment I stepped off the train. I'll never forget that day as long as I live. It was July 17th, 1959. The train pulled up on Fremont Street. I got off Union Pacific, and I remember it being at night, but it looked like daylight. Fremont Street would just look like daylight. In the heat, it felt like you were walking into a furnace. And I knew that I had just come from Cincinnati to life. You know what I mean? Like, I knew this was going to be a blast, you know, and believe me, over the years, it has been a blast.
Jimmy,
There's no city in the world like Las Vegas.
Jimmy, did you have to wear the sunglasses at night because the lights were so bright?
Well, you could have. You know, a lot of people did, but it wasn't because of the sun, you know, I mean.
Yeah, they had a lot of lights back then, a lot of lights going on.
It was so different then, Fremont Street was, than now.
Oh, complete difference.
Really, it was
complete
really
difference back
So
then.
you've been here a long
1959 I came out.
Practically a native.
Yeah.
And speaking of native, let's go to Benny Baccarat, who is a native of Las Vegas.
That's correct. Yeah,
Let's hear it. Let's hear it out there for all the natives.
Yes, it's a big hand. That's correct.
Because the natives are definitely restless,
There is
especially today.
Yeah, especially today. Yes, born and raised out here. They call me the Desert Rat, one of them, and which is pretty good. Born in Southern Nevada Hospital. Yeah, Southern Nevada. Wow, that's no longer there anymore. Born out there by Sunrise Mountain, which it was all open fields. I mean, we just run and play and hoop and holler at clear skies. There was no houses, no nothing out there back then. Run barefoot wherever we went. Had a good growing up. Went to school, of course. Got out of Rancho High, Ended up going into the service, did my tour over there, got out. I had a chance of going into Lockheed painting airplanes. That's what I did in service, and chose the gaming professional because of my family. Had all my family, my father, my grandfather, all of them, third generation. So they made a makeshift crap table there at the house. That's where I learned to deal, cutting chips, learning the payouts, and ended up with my first job downtown, which we all had to go through. And I just remember the sights, the sounds, and the colors. It was just unbelievable back then. You know, I mean, the Eldorado parades, everything. It was totally different than now. But I'm sure glad I was a part of it. And Danny, you another native, wasn't you?
Yeah. Well, so Pat, just to back up for a second. So, from that time that you broke into now, how many years of gaming experience do you have to date?
40 years.
40
years, and yes.
And you dealt craps?
I dealt dice all my life. I did a little baccarat for probably a year and a half, but mostly all dice.
So not only is Benny Baccarat an accomplished dice dealer, he's a doctor of diceology with a minor in crapology, the same degrees that I have.
Exactly correct. You had the better hands than me.
Well, I was an only child, but I won't get into the specifics.
And I kind of lean to the card and roulette side because, you know, them crap dealers can only count up to 12, you know what I mean?
That's true. 21 can always get to 21.
6, 7, 8, the Las Vegas straight. That's a 5, 7, 9.
Well, that's why Jimmy said when he'd be dealing to some big player, and he said, I only got to count to 21, and you're done.
Yeah.
21 and you're done.
Craps, they all talk to you at once.
Well,
I have what do you call that?
It's called a massive conversation amongst many people.
I can only talk to one person at a time. You know, I get flustered, you know.
Well, that's one thing about dice. You had to talk to very many people
at one time.
And retain what they were all saying.
That's true. So let me give you a little of my history. I was born in Las Vegas at Las Vegas Hospital, which actually opened in 1931
Las Vegas Hospital.
By Dr. Roy Martin, who they named a junior high and other things after him as well. And I was born in 1952, so that should tell you a little bit about my age, which I don't get into. None of us do.
No.
But we all still look very young. I'm sure you'll see us when you upload us to YouTube
young
on
at
Friday.
Heart, baby. Young at heart.
So, my father broke in the middle 50s at the Boulder Club and became a crap dealer. And actually, when he went to the Strip in 1958 at the very mobbed-up Riviera Hotel, he was one of the first Mexican crap dealers to work on the Strip in those days. And that was pretty significant because I was just, as a matter of fact, I'm pulling out a medallion right now that has when I was at the 50th anniversary of the Riviera Hotel. The 50th, I'm wearing it in honor of the Riviera, its significance in my personal history. And growing up, I saw the difference in my dad being in gaming. I mean, he had all of these suits and clothes and shoes. I mean, I thought my dad was a big shot. He was just a crap dealer, but they made a great living back then. So in 1973, after bouncing around, I did a little radio. I went to UNLV for a short time. I did other things that I won't mention on the radio to try to make a living, but those things, they were too high risk. So I broke in 73 at the Fremont Hotel, which I think Jimmy's familiar with that outfit. Jimmy Hill, Paul Brinkman.
Yeah, they're all out of Newport.
Mike Levinson, who's...
Eddie Levinson.
Ed Levinson, who was very high up in the union, was also very mobbed up with the Detroit people, Mo Dalitz, other people like that, Lansky, Luciano, Frank Costello, just to name a few.
My wife's uncle built that joint.
That's correct. We'll get into that in a little bit, though. We also, I noticed that all those guys were from Covington, Kentucky, and Newport and the Cincinnati area, because they were all, as soon as they got a break, they all went down to Leroy's to bet the horse races.
That's right.
So these guys had started since they were small, and if they could have been thinner, they'd have been jockeys. But I've been dealing for 42 years. I'm still gainfully employed. I won't say where. I do work at a top resort, and I'm still given the same old-fashioned Las Vegas service, which in a way has kind of been lost because corporations, you lose the personal touch. And but I try to bring back old Vegas as well as these gentlemen do too. So, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, well, we have to do that. This has been a great town for all of us, and that's all we can do. That's all we know is helping this town.
Well, let me tell you something. I know that in the gaming business, it gets a bad rap for people that become habit forming with certain things that happen, alcohol or drugs or philandering. I mean, I can thank my lucky stars. I'm only on my third marriage.
Third marriage, man. You're doing good.
But that's like an equal here in Vegas. I mean, if you've been married once, you think something's wrong with you, you know?
You're practically still a virgin.
That's right. You got to be married 3 times before it works. I'm on my third, too. As a matter of fact, today's her birthday. Happy birthday, honey.
Happy birthday,
happy
Jeanette. And you will be home
Jeanette.
right after the show.
What's this, your 21st or your 19th? I forgot.
He says it's the 19th, so happy birthday.
Well, I know that all our wives are really hot, too.
They are.
As the
They
kids
are.
would say, they're H to the O to the T.
That's right.
That's
You
true.
too, my little German strudel. My wife is German heritage, so I call her strudel. So
Oh, she's such a sweetheart, too.
she is sugar-free,
Sugar-free. And
Yeah.
he'll be home after this radio show. too.
gluten-free, because the only thing that's binding is my marriage contract.
Yeah, and that's a toss-up anymore.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to the
Let's
specifics.
Get back, sure. We're definitely going to be talking about one of the first casinos ever to be built, and it's going to surprise a lot of people out there on where and who it is. Danny, would you like to elaborate a little bit?
Well, I might go with Maine Stalker.
How about that?
Maine Stalker.
Who was Maine Stalker?
Let me tell you something about Maine Stalker. She arrived in Las Vegas in 1911. Just picture this. She got off the railroad in the evening. There was no real buildings. It was a tent city. It was all tents. There was no streets, sidewalks. There was no trees. It was when she got off the bus. The bus. I'm thinking about the bus.
Train.
The train. Yes, the train. When she took the train, she said, "You got to be out of your mind to live here."
That's exactly what she did say. She absolutely did say
And
that.
Danny, what brought her to Vegas?
Well, actually, her husband, who she had married at the ripe young age of 16, his name was Oscar, and he worked for the railroad.
Yeah, the Union Pacific.
And just prior to them landing in Vegas, you followed the railroad because they employed you. That was the main employer out west in the Midwest at that time. So everybody was connected to the railroad in some way or other. You want to elaborate on that?
Well, I would just like to ask one of you gentlemen a question. They didn't have money very much back then. What was used to pay everybody back then?
Well, it was called scrip.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Scrip money. That was used because regular money was hard to come by in those days, and using scrip, they had to use it on military bases. They used it on ships going overseas and railroad stations, coal mine towns, stuff like that. They could only use scrip.
And they had a captive audience. They only had to use it with them.
That's
I mean,
exactly
beautiful.
right. They kept it amongst themselves, so whoever got script had to use it into those premises. It was pretty interesting. How
But
that
the
was
real
used.
payoff was that the railroad, who was the employer, would give them the scrip. They would redeem it for goods and services that they owned. So in actuality, they were getting free labor.
They get free labor because they could use them at anywhere they wanted. They could transfer them anywhere they wanted to use them. It was pretty interesting. Very interesting.
Thank you. We're going to take a
Take
minute
a little
here.
short break.
We're going to take a little short break. Do you have to go to little boy's room, Jimmy?
No, not yet.
All
but
right.
I could dig a break.
You ever heard this expression, hold it?
Now, let's return to the Vegas Nights.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I know that you're on the edge of your seats with all the tales that we're telling today. We have so many tales. Some are tall, some are short.
They're all
That's
true.
true.
Though.
And you're listening to Benny Baccarat, Danny Craps, Jimmy Bags. known as,
Someday I'll tell you why they call me
Cincinnati
Jimmy
Kid.
Bag.
Yeah, one day we would like to hear that. But we were talking about Mamie Stalker after she had gotten off the train and everything, just how bad it was for them back then.
Well, it
Now,
was.
can you imagine getting off the train and seeing all that back then?
I've
That
tried.
temperature.
I've tried to visualize getting off the train with it like 100 and some degrees, the heat hitting you in the face, no street, no cover, no shade, all buildings. Forget about it. It was tent city.
Tent City. If I'm not mistaken, didn't they used to take little picnics over to the old Mormon fort? Didn't
The
they?
old Mormon fort. Yes. Where was that at today?
That was on Las Vegas Boulevard in Maine, right down there, and that was the only place that they had the big trees where they could sit under and get a little bit of
It's still there.
coolness. Yeah, it's still
The
there.
buildings are still there. It's right across from Bunker Brothers. So.
Yeah,
Oh, it is.
good spot from it. But yeah,
It is.
Yeah. Well, that place is dead.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, it's
hey,
dead.
They're dying to get in that joint.
I hear they got more stiffs there than they do at the local casino.
You got more stiff, sir?
Sorry, it's just a little Vegas,
Little, Vegas humor.
crap humor from Danny
joke.
Craps.
Inside joke.
Danny Craps. You know, obviously the
I
last
worked at a
name
joint-
says it
hey,
all.
I worked at a joint that was supposed to be a mob joint, right? This guy runs strippers and owned all these topless joints and stuff. He'd always come in there and he'd drink and buy drinks for the girls, and he'd always never give me anything. You know, I'm the bartender. So I said, "What's your handle?" Vinny the Stiff. And one guy told me, "Don't let him hear you say that. You'll get in trouble." I said, "Vinny the Stiff. I can't stand a stiff."
well, what
Ain't
is
that
a
like
stiff?
Somebody
What are you
that never
talking about?
tips you.
Oh.
Like, here's a guy work you all night, giving everybody drinks and never want to give you nothing. Well, you know what? That's how you make your money. You know, throw a little my way.
Well, that's one
You
thing.
don't impress me, stiff boy. Huh?
Well, not to get off the subject too much, but that's one of the things that we made. We were earners. We earned our money off of people, off of tips, and you became their best friend. You personalized the experience. You knew the wife, the girlfriend, the dog, the cat.
Right.
If they had a goat, that was really good too.
That's right. We
Yeah, it
really
was.
lived. Hey, you know what? We lived on tips. We get minimum wage. Tips are our toques, as we call them,
Yeah.
are our livelihood. You know, and some people don't understand that. I don't ever. If I can't tip 20%, I don't do it.
Plus, we used to spread it
least.
around because we had fresh
That's
lettuce,
right.
which translates it wasn't script,
And you
baby.
know what?
It
That
was
wasn't
real
script, that was
cash.
real
It's
cash.
good for the economy too.
But
That's
that was
why I like
was
that.
definitely an art form back then to be able to
right.
do that.
They think it's a city in China now.
Sure, they
Tipping?
they don't know.
Tipping.
Mandarin or Cantonese, or is it a combo?
No, Peking. You know.
Oh, don't be peeking in my house.
So back to
Yes, back to Maine
1931,
Stalker.
Maine Stalker.
well, let's go where for Oscar, her husband, who was associated with the railroad, as well as the boys were associated because of their father. When Mamie Stalker decided to buy the Northern, he could not hold a license or be part of it because at that time the railroad people that worked for the railroad were persona non grata with any kind of saloon or bar or anything to that nature, right, Pat?
That's exactly right. That's correct. They couldn't be a part of any of that. So she was the main lady.
She
1920s when it opened, and it was a soda shop more or
a
less,
soda emporium as a front.
as a front. That later on changed.
A lot of fronts in
As,
them days.
they had a lot of fronts.
Huh? In
lot
Newport,
of fronts.
Kentucky, they had more fronts than. That was ridiculous. Bowling alleys,
Oh, yeah.
restaurants.
Yeah,
Huh?
that's
Bingo, yeah, it was a
exactly
joke.
right.
So now she became the boss of the Northern. She was licensed for it in 1920 at a certain part of the city. Does anybody know where that was?
I do.
Yeah.
I
town?
do. I do. That was Block 16.
Block 16. Look
Block
at Jimmy Bagg
16.
smile when I say Block 16.
Yeah, that has a significance to
Yeah.
it.
That's right. What's the 16th letter of the alphabet? There's a P. Stands for prostitution, and that's where it was.
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But prior to that, there was just that one area, Block 16, where you could go to a bar, you could go to a saloon, where you could go gambling.
You could.
And the two prevalent games at the time were roulette, and 21.
Roulette 21.
But there was 5 games
There was
prior
5
to 31.
games.
which were stud poker, draw poker, 500, which is an old game we used to play back east. Our parents used to play it. It's a rummy game, and you add the points, and that's how you pay. You pay a penny a point, quarter a point, dollar a point, whatever. That's how high you ever wanted to go. It's a good game, and that was their mainstay
And
until
bridge.
And bridge,
Bridge was in there, yeah.
Bridge,
Low ball poker.
Low
Low
ball
ball poker.
which is
poker.
still good. That's a good game.
Well, I think they use it at car lots now, too. Used car lots, low ball you.
Yeah, that low ball, you all right.
I think I had a drink
Or high
made
ball,
like
yeah.
that once.
A high
No, that's
ball,
called
wasn't
high
it?
ball.
Oh, was it a high ball?
Well, they got a low ball and a high ball. I think I'll take the
Or
high
a
ball.
speedball. They got a speedball,
Speedball.
too.
Well, that's a different kind of drink
Oh,
there.
that's a blast.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, they that was a front. Was front for the what they used to do there.
Right.
They used to mix drinks there because they had to mix drinks. It was something that they had to do.
Well, because during Prohibition, you had the Prohibition police and watching out for who was trying to pass that illegal hooch.
That illegal hooch was, and they always tried to catch him doing it.
They did. As a matter of fact, one of Maine's sons, I believe it was Harold. Harold would keep a bottle of whiskey in his pocket, so when someone wanted to have a drink, he could do it, because the Prohibition police, it was very expensive to have the booze analyzed, and unless they were sure you were doing something illegal, they kind of just
Well, damn.
went the other way.
Where'd they get the booze? They had a cottage industry, man. They made their own and sold it.
They made their own and sold it. There was a special place out there that I don't know if too many people would know where
Votech
Votech
now,
is,
yeah.
or FLM Chocolates all the way at the end of Sunset. They had caves back there, and they used to hold them back in them caves and make it back there. They made enough to where they had plenty for themselves and other retailers.
And would the old man
would
buy it cheap, and then Prohibition came in, and he
He
made
did. That was that was when Mamie Stalker had to go back to Butte, Montana. One of her sisters was not going to make it, so she took Harold, the middle-aged boy, to go back to for a learning session. And they got back there, and he had 2 uncles that had 2 bars on each side of the street, and that's where he learned about whiskey. And the one uncle had bought 3 carloads of whiskey before Prohibition for I think it was 50 cents a quart, if I'm not
50
mistaken.
cents, yeah, 50 cents a quart. Yes.
is what he bought it for.
Right.
And then Prohibition went in, and then he was stuck with it. But 3 years later, he got rid of it for how much?
$25 a quart.
$25 a quart, which was a lot of money.
That's what I talk
profits
about.
I like.
That's what I'm talking about. Aged.
Yes,
Something
that's
that's
aged.
aged.
Yeah.
And then when they came back out, Mamie brought him back out, Harold back out to Las Vegas. They found out that the school had burnt down, and I believe that was the Clark County school back
Yes, it
then.
was. It was the Clark County School.
And it burnt down, so she ended up taking Harold, since her husband Oscar worked for the railroad. They had free tickets.
Yeah, free commute
So-
to anywhere.
They went back to L.A. They enrolled him in L.A. And from L.A., he was, 17 then? And what did he learn in L.A.?
He found out, by talking to somebody, he became a dealer in Tijuana,
That's correct.
where it was not illegal.
It was not illegal. 17 years old. Can you believe that?
And he started off as a roulette mucker, and that's someone who helps disperse cleans the chips and gets them ready for the roulette dealer.
Stacks
So
them up.
stacking the checks. And then, of course, he also learned how to deal
Payoffs.
21. And the interesting thing was, how did he make his payoffs and what?
Script.
No, we made them in pesos.
Yeah, pesos and silver
and
dollars, and
pesos.
Gold coins and
gold coins
big
and pesos.
Big pesos.
Yeah,
So when you stack those big pesos up, it looked like a skyscraper.
yeah. You look like you had a lot of money.
Well, in fact,
With-
he had a
with
he had
a balcony.
He had a producer that came
Staked
out
him.
and staked him $500, and would tell him, you bet, $1 or $5. It was $5 at the time.
Minimum bet $5.
Minimum $5, and if you caught a little bit of a hand, and he would bet $100.
That's correct.
And if he lost, he'd go back to $5. But at the end of the year, how much did the guy give him?
At the end of that summer, when the smoke cleared, young Harold, at 17 years old, had $6,000. $6,000.
That's a lot of money. back
Could
then.
you imagine? That's a lot of money back there for a 17-year-old kid.
Whew, it's a lot of money. And then he ended up coming back out and being part of the Northern, which he was anyhow. He was part of the family. And so she told him, since you were a dealer there, I want you to start dealing here. And they were really starting to get into the things. Well, he did, didn't he?
Yes, he did, because there wasn't a lot of people that knew what was really going on as far as gaming. It was still new, and people were still learning, and they were going along. So since he had experience, of course, he was going to be part of that operation, as well as later on in investing in some of the sawdust joints. Harold invested in some other the sawdust joints. Were not maybe as reputable as his mother's place.
No, that's exactly. Now, Jimmy, that's where the P came in, I believe.
Yeah.
That's
Well, they
where-
didn't have much to do, these people. I mean, it was like on a Saturday night, they go listen to the four-piece German band, and go to East Fremont swimming pool, Ladd swimming pool. That was it. It was desert, no sidewalks, no lights. If it rained, it was muddy. They had to carry lanterns to see.
That's correct.
That's where Muddy Waters come from. Nah.
Muddy Warmers. I bet they were singing the blues, though,
Yeah, they were
back
singing
in
the
those
blues,
days.
right? That's why Mame opened a shop.
Could you imagine no air conditioning?
No,
can
damn. And in them days, it was, ooh,
That's why you had the group Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
really, all at once.
But getting back to...
Well, we're going to be taking a short break here.
we're going to take a
quick.
short break so we can regather our thoughts.
And we'll definitely keep listening.
See-
It gets better.
Yes, sir.
I've got a good memory, but it's
And
short.
we got some contests going, too.
Yes,
some
we
trivia
definitely
Is it a
have.
bikini contest?
Yeah, maybe. There's going to be stuff you can win prizes, and we're going to give off some gift certificates for people to call in and answer the questions of Old Vegas, and some trivia stuff, So stay
so
tuned.
If you're out there, come on.
And we're having guests, some mystery guests, in weeks and months to come. So you folks,
Yeah, we're
going to really
kidnapping
start
some
liking
people
our
and
show.
putting
I
a
think.
hood over them and bringing them to
That's
the
right. No,
to the
these
station,
people you'll
Vegas
know.
All Net Radio.
These people are old school Vegas, man. You'll know them.
Old school Vegas, that's right.
Old school Vegas.
Like
these
us.
folks.
Now, let's return to the Vegas Nights.
Well, hello. You're listening still to the Vegas Nights Tells. You're talking to Sammy, Benny Baccarat, Danny Kratz, and Jimmy Bags.
I think 2 minutes is too long
You've been
That's
for
a
a
long
break.
time. That's
Sammy,
a real long time.
a.k.a. Benny.
Yeah,
You need another
AKA
bag already?
Benny.
No, okay.
Listen, I'm gonna since Jimmy, obviously his career as a 21D counts to 21. Okay, when gaming in Nevada became legal in 1931, who was the first person to be licensed with a gaming license in the state of Nevada? Jimmy, we know that 21 people are smarter, so.
Maine.
Oh wow, Maine.
Stalker, that's correct.
Maine Stalker.
Maine Stalker. She was the very first one.
First
Everybody would
woman.
think.
Nobody would ever think that.
No, everybody would think it'd be a mobster or something
Right.
like that.
Well, she might have been a
But,
monster. I mean,
you know,
who knew?
She was very
was in all
well,
the
very
papers,
well
that's
liked.
right.
I know that. She was in all the papers for the parties and everything. They
right.
loved her.
She was highly respected. Like I said, in the society columns, they would talk about her parties and all the friends. She was a highly respected woman, and she ran an honest place.
Patton, was she good looking though? On this thing here, it shows her very nice looking.
She was. She was a very nice looking lady back then. Yes, she was. Yeah, they have some old pictures from UNLV that has pictures of her, and even where her house was and all that, standing in front of her house. Has anybody know where that was at?
I believe I could answer
The
that.
Huntridge Theater part. You know what a Huntridge Theater, right?
Yeah,
Well,
the
yes.
Huntridge
I
neighborhood.
was trying to use my crap degree for that one, Jimmy.
What was it?
No, it was by the Huntridge. That Huntridge area right there.
Yeah, what's that
By
got to
that
do-
little park, and then, of course, behind the Huntridge Theater. Of course, it wasn't there then, but there was some nice homes there.
Yeah.
Yes.
High class. High
And
end.
you know the address or the area?
He knows that.
Well, other than the Huntridge,
Charleston and Maryland Parkway.
yeah, but they have a exact 15th and
Or was it 5th and...
no, it's 15th,
15th.
and 15th and Bennett, something like that.
Yeah, we should drive over there after there. and
Yeah,
We should
it's,
go by there and see if there's anybody there we might know. Weren't we back there then? We're not that old, are we?
We ain't that old.
No.
I think
Well, the old
whirlwinds
Indian
were
Ranch
taking.
You know what was interesting when they did allow prostitution to thrive in Block 16? Well, when they added the prostitution, the women of the night, how it worked was they would have their room and everything, and they would meet a gentleman, and they would go to the bar or the casino, and it would cost 50 cents for a drink, which the person would buy him a drink. So the club or the bar or whatever split the 50 cents with the woman of the evening, 25 cents each. And of course, after that, her negotiations. Well, no, that's just that's just a glass with something in it.
That's to get some bad whiskey.
That's just to split the tab on the liquid.
I asked a hooker once. She said, "I'm $1,000 an hour." And I said, "Give me 5 minutes worth."
Listen, I got one better than that. I was standing in front of a window shopping at the fashion show mall, and there was a big, tall, statuesque woman, looked like a showgirl. And she said, "Don't turn around." She goes, "How would you like to make $500?" I said, "Yeah, what do I got to do?" She said, "You got to let me beat you with this wet towel." I said, "Yeah, for how long?" She says, "Till you give me back the $500.
Jimmy, I don't.
You okay, Jimmy? Do you need an inhaler?
Look at the bags.
I got an inhaler, Jimmy, that'll blow your mind.
Yeah,
A little Primatine to get you through.
friggin' downers.
Remember how you used to have to prime the pump?
Yeah, don't
All right.
mind.
Let's get back
I
to
have
the
a funny
streets of
bone,
Las
though.
Vegas.
I can just picture him getting beat by this towel.
A wet one at that.
Oh Lord.
Hey, so listen, to get back to Mame a little bit, after, of course, we missed a few details because we crack up constantly. But actually, can someone tell me, prior to it being legal, how did it become legal to begin with? I'm talking about gaming.
I think Mame had a meeting with some of the high-end guys in the city and brought it to their attention that it would be a good money-making deal, and
Well, there was actually, I think there was quite a few guys that were picked up and thrown in prison. Reno, because they were doing it illegally, and then things slacked off after that, so people kept gambling and everything, and they did hold a meeting at the back of the Northern. I believe it was Lester, one of the sons.
I believe it was Lester and his
was a
mother,
professional gambler.
her partners, and a couple of assemblymen, a politician, a businessman, Booster, and other people that were interested in what was going to happen because the federal government had started to be less tolerant of all this wide open gaming. So they, one fellow had mentioned that, you know what, if we could if I had some money, we could spread some money around enough to where we could maybe influence some people to get it on the floor.
Of the assembly.
Now, Jimmy, you made an interesting comment in the green room out there about graft and corruption and how far, that you had to grease someone's palm to get things done.
Well, just like the statement you just made, I mean, we have to get money saved up and then get it presented on the floor. I mean, does that mean you have to
we
pay
had to
for
find
everything
somebody
to
that
get
would take
presented
the
on
money
floor?
so that it could get voted on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's...
Well, I don't think anybody was really proven to have taken any of the money. I don't think that never did come out.
Who was that assemblyman in question that introduced it to the Senate floor? Do you remember his name?
Yeah, I do. That was Phil Tobin.
Phil Tobin,
out
yes.
of Tonopah, but he never did. Winnemucca. Yeah, he never did say that he took the money. I think the only thing he said he took was 3 bottles.
But he got the beer. He got
scotch,
the bill
correct?
passed, though, right, Patton?
Well, the bill did pass. Now, whether he got it done or not.
Or
the
was
bill did
instrumental,
pass. It
or was very
He
instrumental.
was instrumental in the getting it all licensed.
Well, he had incentive, 3 bottles of scotch. I'd be all over
Oh,
it.
I would be too. Have
Huh?
one bottle, and you make decisions, don't you?
Oh yeah, and when you get 2 more, then you have indecision.
That's
But,
got to be a mass menagerie in that Washington D.C. If that's,
well,
they got to be some money flowing strong there, brother.
Well, I think on a smaller scale, we, as dealers,
Yeah.
especially as crab dealers,
Yeah.
we used to lay off to some of the people because they allowed you, and there was nothing dishonest or illegal or we were doing anything wrong. They allowed us to interact with the customers on a personal level. In return, we made cash money. We spread it around.
In other
We'd
words,
give
they
a
let
box-
you hustle.
Yeah, we'd give and we wouldn't try to put the Jesse James to somebody, which is hold them up, strong arm him. That was not my style. My style was to become his best friend, his croupier, his dealer,
On
his
his side.
soothsayer. That's why I say doctor of dicology, because just like a bartender, Jimmy knows, they're telling you their problems. They're talking about their wives, their girlfriend, their kids, what they're doing, what they're not doing. So you became
You're like a psychologist or something, man.
exactly.
well, you are.
exactly.
You're a listener to
Yeah.
to all their worries. They're coming out here to get away from their problems, and we had to hear them, which we would turn it around in our favor by listening to them and getting in more or less into their pocket. So
Yeah,
it was very interesting how this all worked.
Yeah, he was asking me about marriage problems. I said, "What are you asking me for? I've been married 3 times."
Well, you might be an expert on this subject, Jimmy. You know what I mean?
I finally got a good one. A good one.
You didn't take it serious when they said "till death do you part"?
No, there ain't nothing till death do us part. I don't want to know nothing that long.
I think you might want to
I hope you're not
rephrase that.
listening, baby. You know?
Jeanette, I hope you got the hair blower on right now.
Yeah. No, honey, you're there for life. That's a sad thought, isn't it?
Well, I wonder why my wife, for my birthday, doubled up on my insurance premiums.
Oh, she did she?
Yeah.
Danny seen his wife, didn't even know who she was.
I told you I had a great memory, but it's short.
No wonder he lasts 48 years. He never sees her.
As long as I don't call her by my second wife's name.
Really?
Oh, she hated her. Isn't that crazy?
Mine, they get along. How about that? That's even worse.
Imagine going camping together.
My wife said to me, my new wife says, "How could you ever be that way with her? She's such a nice lady." I went, "Really? Are you actually saying that to me?"
That's why
Huh?
there's 2 sides to every coin.
story. That's right. And that's the truth.
Heads or tails.
That's the
Heads
truth.
or tails.
And we've got some tails for you. Go ahead,
that's
Pat.
us.
We
Let's
do.
talk
We've
about
got-
it right now.
we've got
'Cause
some
Jimmy's
tails.
just chomping at the bit to ask me about how we all met and everything.
How did we all meet?
All right, here's how it is. I've known Danny since I'm older than Danny. I'm about 3 or 4 years older than Danny, but his cousins and his uncles, I grew up with them. Danny was there, and I met Danny. I was like 13. Patton lived in my same neighborhood, but as Danny, he's younger than me too. We went to the same high school. We lived in the same neighborhood within blocks of each other. And I never had the pleasure of ever meeting Patton that I know of. I might have met him in the neighborhood.
You might have met him at the Arctic Circle.
The Arctic Circle, man.
Onion rings
How
and
about
cherry
the
cokes.
National Guard, the Armory. Remember the dances at the Armory?
Sure.
I saw Country Joe and the Fish there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that well.
Remember Charlie White Eagle? You don't remember Charlie White Eagle,
No.
do you?
I remember him and
Remember
how.
Charlie?
And how.
And he was a how. He used to brag that he used to date Annette Funicello, and him and Frankie used to fight over and everything.
He tried to put a feather in her cap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, he was a little off, but hey.
I
we
remember
never bothered him because
the old
we
lady
liked
in
him.
the cave.
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah, Mrs. Morgan.
We used
was
to
her
hike
name.
up there and think.
Sure.
We never thought it was for real, And then we went into her thing, and she wasn't there, but you could see stuff of people.
Oh, we seen her all the time. We used
Yeah.
to take her canned goods up
Yeah.
there. She had one blue eye and one brown eye.
Really?
Everybody thought she was a witch.
I think she was.
Was that the premise for the Righteous Brothers song?
It was.
Make your brown eye blue?
Make your brown eye blue. Man, you guys are
Tell me
stumpy.
what brown eye you're talking about.
I can't see where you're coming from right now,
Good.
Jimmy, but hey,
I'm
should be Jimmy Cocoa Puff.
yeah.
Yeah, we.
We're going to take a little break. Only because I need some oxygen.
Yeah, and I got some stories about some raids to tell you when we come back.
Raids or roids?
Raids.
Well, I'll sit on that one for a while.
Not on.
Now let's return to the Vegas Nights.
Hey, folks, we're back. Thanks for hanging in there. Now we got some tales of. I remember I had just had some mind flashbacks when I was a kid. You know, I might have been 10 years old, and Dad had always come home early. We never knew really what he did, you know, and he'd always come home early sometimes. And I go, Mom, how come Dad's home? And she said they had a raid. And my mom, she was pretty forward. She never tried to hide much. She told it like it was. Like, never tell the nuns what your father does for a living, you know. Stuff like that. Everything was always a big secret. So coming here to Vegas, everything was open, you know. And I never understood when he'd take me over there sometimes, and he'd say, "Now I want you to walk behind this wall here and just act like you're going to the bathroom or something and check it out." And it was the casino. It was the casino, different than these casinos. Wood floors, floormen walking around on rafters, nothing fancy whatsoever. Then I'd come back out and I go, Dad, if that's all illegal, how come they do it right there? Couldn't a cop just walk in there and do it? He goes, I'll tell you all about that later.
That was in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati,
not here.
Not here. No,
Not
when
here.
we come out here, it was like, wow. You know, these places were like, compared to them places, there was none.
Do you remember they had sawdust?
Yeah, it was like a
Sawdust
joints.
joints?
When they say joints, I mean joints. You know, they were joints. And I give my dad credit for working in them. The only time he had off was 2 weeks a year during grand jury. That's when they closed the joints. Yeah.
What a holiday.
Really. Then he'd go down to Churchill and work the Derby and the races. He sold tickets he was a hustler.
Do
man.
you know who was the fronts for those joints over there outside
Cleveland
of Cincinnati?
Mouse.
The Cleveland Mob?
They were all from Cleveland, the Roadhouse gang. Mo Dalitz was one. I didn't know many of them until I came out here, but I know my cousins. They pretty much ran Newport when it came to girls, numbers, and stuff like that. You know, not much the casino joints, but everything that surrounded that, they had something to do with in that town. You know, they end up taking over the numbers and everything.
They were like attachments to a vacuum cleaner that sucked up everything.
They sure was. They
Yeah,
sure were.
I worked with,
and they were nice
a lot.
men too.
I worked with a lot of guys from Steubenville,
Yeah.
all back
That was
there,
all
out there
mobs.
at
I mean, that
the
was
Trop.
Hot Springs, Arkansas, where
Yeah.
my wife's from. They
And,
used
you know,
to hide them out there. I mean,
You listen to their stories, and you're right. You know, I work with some shift bosses that were all back in Louisiana and all back in there. And they used to say that their catwalk up top, that they'd walk around. They actually had guys up there with guns
yeah, no guns.
that was
no.
ready to shoot anybody
Yeah.
downstairs
Yeah.
if they were out of line.
There was no public correctness. I mean, politically correct stuff then. You
Well-
crossed them, you paid. They didn't care who knew
Yeah.
what or who you were.
When I was at the Golden Nugget, I went to work there in '73. Steve Wynn had just bought it 2 or 3 months prior. I went to work there in December of '73. He had just bought the Golden Nugget a few months prior, him and a couple of his partners, but it was his first I'm the owner, I'm calling the shots kind of deal. First casino. So I worked with a guy named Jack Seals out of Oklahoma who used to work. He was used to run some of those places in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And he used to tell me, he says, you went to work with a pistol and a blackjack.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if people got out of line, there was no security guards. You took care of it yourself.
My wife's other uncle in Baton Rouge, a guy that took a liking to him was Oni Madden. And I know of anybody that knows anything
Oni,
about
yes.
anything.
Big
was Oni
time.
Madden.
Big time
They
monster.
called him the English Godfather. He was from England. He took a liking to my wife's uncle, let him put slots in them joints down there. You know, the guy's a multi-millionaire now. He claims he made it in real estate. I don't believe it. I mean, if you know Oni Madden and he takes a liking.
Well, if he's
to
the
it.
English
He had
God,
bars open and
did he ever invite you
Cowboys.
over for dinner and to have some toad in the hole
the
or
man.
bangers and mash?
Not Oni. Oni's done. Oni was got long. He's an old man. He's dead.
Is he gone?
Yeah. Oni was years ago. He used to own the Cotton Club in New York. Oni Madden.
Was there any real cotton there?
Yeah, there was cotton. All kinds.
100%?
100%. Whoa.
But we all worked with a lot of these guys. When we all broke in the 70s, these guys they were already old, and they had
Yeah.
worked in, like I had met a lot of the Cuban roulette dealers that used to deal down at the Hotel Nacional
That's right.
in Havana, and of course in Miami and these other places that were at that time illegal. But you know, it was open. I mean, people got dressed up. The women looked fantastic, which carried over into Las Vegas. It was a very glamorous. I mean, people just dressed to the nines. You remember
Yeah.
those days,
Yes,
you
sir.
guys?
I remember
Boy,
when
do
I
I.
first started wearing a pinky ring. I worked with a Cuban. We were bus boys at the Stardust, and he always wore this nice pinky ring. And his name was Juan, and I'd always say, Juan, I love your ring, man. It's got you don't see many. Yeah. And I went down and got me one at Christensen's Jewelers, my first pinky ring, man. You know.
Your
And I've
first
been
pinky
wearing them
ring.
ever since. Yeah.
Well, I got some of my jewelry, which I come to find out later, it wasn't as what it should have been, from Sammy Angel. I know you know who Sammy
Yeah,
Angel
I know
was.
Sammy.
He used to be around town. He'd carry a case. He'd say, "Come over here. Look at all these watches and rings." Little did I know he might have got them out of the gumball
Who
machine.
cares?
He sold shoes and
Like the
everything.
hole in the wall gang. Remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he tried to sell me some shoes. He tried to make a heel out of me.
Yeah.
I told him you didn't have much soul.
My mom would tell me, go to the Flamingo and go to this room. I'd go to that room and walk in, and the guy had sweaters, alpaca sweaters, and suits, and shoes, and socks, and silk ties. He had everything. And that's where we'd all bought our clothes at a very good price, you know?
Well, it's amazing because I learned a couple of hustles growing up here, of course, but my second home, my second training ground was Tijuana, because I'm Mexican, you know. Yo hablo español. I don't need a Rosetta Stone. I can go either way,
Just
either
throw
or.
that stone, brother.
But I'd go stay with my grandmother, and the first thing they handed me on the weekend was a shoe shine box to go sign shoes at the Plaza de Toros down there on the coast.
Did they tell you go get your box? Go get
No,
your shine
but
box.
my cousin said, because you look so white, I look very light. I don't look Latin. I look Italian or whatever. So they said,
Oh, we're white.
don't speak English because they're going to think you got kidnapped. So the guy would be shining the shoes, and the guy would say, "Hey, you do a nice job." "Thank you, senor." "Sí." "No, I think so." 5 pesos. So that was my spiel every day. One time I slipped up and said, "You want them? How well do you want them shined?"
How about
The
when
guy
you
said,
told
"What
the
did
guy-
you say?" I said, "I just learned to speak English."
How about when you told the guy,
Thank you.
forget the pesos? pay
Well,
in
listen, everyone.
dollars.
We just wanted to say thank you for listening to the Vegas Knights Tells. It's just the beginning for
Yes,
us
sir.
on this. So
I hope
thank
you had a good
everybody.
time.
Hope you had a
I
good
certainly did.
I had a blast.
You know what? I think this was, they say Dairy Queen's one's life little pleasures. No, this was.
This is.
Yes.
This is the beginning, folks. Stick with us. We're going to have fun and games coming in our next shows.
Yes.
It's just the beginning now.
Trivia
Right.
Pursuit.
Trivia Pursuit,
Our
guest
way.
stars, the whole works.
We're even going to bring on an old-time prostitute to talk how
Yeah.
business was more than up and down back then.
Yes, it is. We've got a lot
It's my
coming
sister.
up. A lot coming up.
We call her Ginny Deuce.
I wonder if she knows my cousin.
Ginny Bag. They call her Ginny the Bag.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, folks.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Gracias a todos mis amigos latinos.